Thanks a lot, the current programming team, like the programming club team, for having me. Today is actually a bit of a special day for me because I think around so exactly 1 year back, sometime around June or July, I had taken my first virtual workshop on Django as a part of website building challenge. Mana bro taru pelu chalu છે mic. Okay. Yeah, so that was probably my first online session which I took, and એનાથી 2 મહિના પહેલા, like, I hope Gujarati works for everyone. I just want to be sort of informal in all my conversations. So કોઈને ના ખબર પડતી હોય તો please કહેજો. I'll just switch to Hindi or English. So that was special, and also what happened was, I think 2 or 3 months before that, we had taken an in-person workshop. Like, that was before this COVID thing happened, and that was also on Django. So this probably is my this is my 11th talk, right after, like, exactly after 1 year. And if you consider virtual talks, like, this is my 10th talk. And I'm really happy that I'm back at Programming Club Ahmedabad University for this special number. So I got a chance to speak at quite some places after spending an, like, you can say, a year or a year and a half with communities in general. And I got a chance to speak on a variety of topics. Like, many of them I really enjoyed. Like, I have like taken recently I took a session on Django REST framework at one of the hackathons. I also, like, a lot of my sessions are related to competitive programming. Like, apparently a lot of people want to know about competitive programming. Like, people just want to grind questions. So that's something which I see very often from organizers. And it's a happy day because it's like the 10th talk. Like it feels like history repeats itself. Like, exactly 1 year later, you get to be where you started with. So yeah, just it was super special. So I wanted to say that. Last time what happened was, when we took the session, I had sort of prepared a tutorial where I had taken an example already, and I wanted to cover stuff from that. Like, but that to me felt like people were not not a lot of people could get it, because like, you cannot really learn a framework in an hour, right? Like, we are limited by our resources, that we have to sort of give you introductory sessions related to topics. So I have decided to maybe do it slightly differently. And as we are not a lot in number, like, it's just like 26 of us, and like 6 or 8 are organizers. Like, some of people who you see as co-hosts right now are like super pros in Django, and they are just here for you guys. Like, they know this stuff very well. So it's like 15 of you who are actually here to maybe learn something new. So let's make it interactive. Let's make it fun. Let's make it casual. I'll not teach you the syntax of anything. I'll try to give you a big picture of what Django is, like, what, as much as I understand. Obviously, like, I'm no pro, but I'll try to tell you what is out there available for you, and I'll try to help you make a choice for your project. That should you use Django, or should you use Node, or if there is, like, if you have decided already that you want to use Django, what do you want to do with it? Like, what are the kind of like, how does it work basically? Like, what is architecture? What is the general design pattern? What are the kind of common features which you might want to look at? Because see, like, there is a popular video, right, by CS50, which is like a 80-minute class on Django. So those guys will probably teach Django much better than I can, and you can already find very amazing videos teaching Django. So I want to give you something which you probably cannot get in YouTube videos. I want to try to give you a bigger picture of things. Obviously, we'll do some code. Like, khali bhashan nathi apano, I don't want to do that. We'll do some code, but we'll not do a lot of code. Instead of that, we'll try to sort of look at the bigger picture in detail. Like, maybe just to give you an understanding. Because what I've observed as well is, a lot of people, after following tutorials, can write some code, but when you are presented with a completely new situation, you realize that you don't really have the conceptual clarity. And like, when I first learned Django, I did the very popular Django Buzz tutorial. I'll show you that tutorial. Like, almost everyone starts with Django, does that, and after that you'll feel that, okay, I know stuff, like, I know the shit. But when I worked on another project, I realized I didn't really know things, because, like, I didn't really have the kind of conceptual clarity required to build new stuff, to at least find solutions, like, to new stuff. Like, obviously you cannot build stuff from your head, but yeah, I think that's important. I think that's really important. And I hope you guys get something out of it, and what I'm trying to do helps you. So guys, feel free to use chat, feel free to interrupt me. use your mic, you can keep your videos on, whatever works for you. And yeah, please, like I would insist that you do that. I would in fact request that you do that, because that helps me understand કે શું ચાલી રહ્યું છે તમારા મગજમાં. ગઈ વખતે પણ એવું થયું હતું કે એક જ વસ્તુ હતી, મેં કદાચ 3 વાર સમજાવી હતી, like sometime 1 year ago, like I think recording હશે YouTube પર. અને that sort of like I thought that I'm making it clear, but it's not that clear for you, and that's okay. Like that's completely okay, because like, we have a diverse audience. Like first year till 4th year સુધીના લોકો હોય છે, that's completely fine. So okay, my volume seems to have a problem. Okay, yeah guys, આવું કોઈ હોય તો પ્લીઝ ઇન્ટરપ્ટ કરજો મને. મને યાદ છે હું લાસ્ટ કોઈ સેશનમાં ગયો હતો ને, બીકોઝ ઇટ વોઝ અ યુટ્યુબ લાઈવ, હું મારી સ્ક્રીન શેર કરવાનું ભૂલી ગયો હતો, અને આઈ વોઝ જસ્ટ ડુઇંગ અ પ્રેઝન્ટેશન, અને આફ્ટર 3 or 4 minutes the organizer told me કે આપકા સ્ક્રીન શેર નહીં, and I was like oh damn. એટલે એવું પણ થાય, but yeah, please do one step out, and like you can just use the, like I'll prefer that you use the audio, because like at a point I'll be sharing my screen and બહુ કદાચ chat ના જોતો. So yeah, I hope that sounds good. I wish I can get some reactions. કઈક મને ખબર પડે કે બધા જીવે છે.
Yes, now it is.
Chat પણ ચાલશે, reactions પણ ચાલશે, કોઈ પણ ચાલશે, but let's do something like that. It's not a lecture, like you are not તમે આની ફીસ નથી ભરતા કે તમે વસૂલ કરવા આવો, like you are just here to learn something. So yeah, let's maybe try to make it fun. And yeah, if you have specific questions related to something which comes up to your mind, yeah, this is your channel to utilize that. So please take advantage of that. Like it will probably help you, like because તમે વિચારશો, તમને જ્યાં સુધી broad idea નહીં હોય ને, this particularly applies to first and second year people. Like if you don't have a broad idea of stuff, you will not even have the right kind of words to Google. Like for example, if you don't understand WebSockets, how will you discover that there is something called you don't know brief about WebSockets that exist કરે છે. So how will you sort of even search for when you want to implement something like real time data update થવો જોઈએ backend થી frontend માં, તમને concepts જ ના ખબર, you don't know what tooling is, for example, how will you search for it? So that becomes a problem, and it has been a problem for me as well. So I hope that doesn't happen for you, and yeah, let's get started. So yeah, why Django maybe should be the first question you should have, and I think we should spend a couple of minutes to address that. So a reason why people honest reason why a lot of people use Django is because they know Python already, and Django looks cool. Django is cool actually. Like the kind of features it has is very nice, and I really like the way, like if you look at the docs as well, Django has perhaps some of the most beautiful docs for any framework out there. Like it's probably one of the best, and you will realize the importance of docs when you actually have to study some of the framework or some of the technology. So maybe at this point you might not feel it, but yeah, they have written an amazing documentation which makes it very easy. They also have a very amazing object relational mapper. So the API which Django has, which basically like you can deal with classes instead of SQL tables. I hope first you guys understand what SQL is. And the mapper maps your queries to SQL queries, and it's sort of decoupled. Like a lot of things are decoupled. You can use any database with Django. Like using the relational database is very easy. Relational is like SQL database is very easy, and it's decoupled as in that if you want to change to MySQL from PostgreSQL, at a point you can just do that by changing 4 lines in settings.py. Settings.py is the main file which manages the settings in Django. So that makes life very easy, and you just have to write pure Python code that I want to create this object, which will correspondingly like translate to a row in the table. I want to do like handling many relations is very easy. Handling foreign keys is very easy. A lot of things come out of the box. That's both an advantage and a disadvantage. It's an advantage because you don't really have to worry about a lot of things. If you work with some lower level framework like PHP, तो बहुत बड़ी वस्तु तुम्हारे जाते करनी पड़े here, but a lot of things come for free. Like you literally have like user related functionalities, for example, that is so easy because you have a user model inbuilt, અને પાસવર્ડ ને બધું મેનેજ કરવું એકદમ ઈઝી છે. Database handling is very easy. Handling forms is very easy. Like you get a full-fledged admin interface. Like these things are very powerful, and that's a pro because you develop fast. Like I remember I did a freelance project like very recently, and like if it like I used Django because my was a time nato. Like I was very short on time and I could like build stuff very quickly with Django. Like if I had used Node, or Flask or Fast API or some other framework, it would have taken much more time. But yeah, this looks like easy. What else should you know about? Yeah, security. So Django handles a lot of security out of the box. Like you might not even have to worry about a lot of things. And deploying it is also quite easy. Like magajmari nathi. And packages, like you can use everything which comes under Python in your application. It's Django is fairly old. Like I think it came in 2007, so there are a lot of Django specific packages as well. There is a lot which happens in the box, but you can get a lot of libraries out of the box. A major disadvantage which people say about Django is that Python doesn't really support asynchronous APIs. But yeah, it has changed with Django 3, I guess, that they are also allowing async APIs, but that's in a very nascent stage right now. Like Django's community is actually working on async APIs for Python itself. So that's how serious they are about. Like these have some performance consequences in the long run if you don't understand this stuff. You can sort of ignore it as well at this point. But yeah, that's something you might want to know at a point. And yeah, jobs. Like Django has a lot of jobs. Like Ghana startups say Django use करे छे. A lot of you'll get a job easily. I don't have like node mate पण છે, no doubt about it. But yeah, like I think my second year internship was also with Django. A lot of my seniors have worked with Django a lot of time, and like you will find companies on campus as well which hire for Django. If you know a decent level of Django, if you have done serious 3 or 4 good projects, I can assure you that you'll get an internship, even a job, a good paying job, like probably one of the higher ones which come on campus. Like they don't really test a lot of things like, if you're well versed with Django. So yeah, I think it's a good investment, like, especially like you can make a choice, like you can also go for some other framework, but yeah, I don't really think it's bad at all. So that was about it. I think that's kind of enough for a start. And please do try to interact. પછી ખબર પડશે કે make sense, or I'm just trying to like not making sense. Uh, Also, there is this beautiful tutorial called Django Girls, which I would really want you to check it out once we are done with this. We'll be able to touch upon some of the features of this, but going to deep chair, this will probably take a week for you to learn, but it's well worth it. So let's make an app. Please, guys, give me some idea after શું બનાવું છું. Like, I haven't. I want you guys to sort of interact with it. Maybe we can, if possible, તમે કંઈક ideas આપો શું કરવું છે, and if it is simple enough, we can do it right now. And we can also like take features, like we can crowdsource features, like we can ask you શું નાખવું છે, અને આપણે એવું કરશું ને, in that we'll try to cover concepts. And will be shameless. Like I don't really expect that, or nobody will expect that you should remember syntax. Like even I forget syntax a lot of times. Like, you have to shamelessly Google stuff, and that's I think nice. Like I don't remember a lot of things, but yeah, like you have to eventually know how to get the information you want. So yeah, please guys, let's discuss some ideas. Last time I think we did a food ordering system. I don't know. Food related બનાવ્યું હતું because food is something everyone relates to. But અત્યારે let's do something. તમારા કોઈ પેલા અરે આ ટિન્ડર ક્લોન નહીં યાર. Okay, but that's not a bad idea. Job opportunities portal. यार हाँ, we can do that. અરે યાર બોલો યાર guys, like I કમિટી વાળા જોડે મારે વાત નથી કરવાની, અમે લોકો ઓલરેડી બહુ મળીએ છીએ અને these guys already know. You don't have to raise your hand, Rajan, like just કહી દે. It's okay.
Chat is disabled for participants.
Chat is disabled for participants. શું વાત કરે?
enable કરી છે please.
Oh sorry guys, please હા બોલો યાર, કંઈક તો બોલો, નહીં મજા આવે. એટલે તમે શું કરો, લેક્ચર્સમાં બી આવું જ કરો, એટલે અમારી ક્લાસમાં બી એવું જ હોય છે. ત્યાં ચાલે, that's okay. એક્ઝામ એક અઠવાડિયા પહેલા થઈ જાય. Anime portal. Yeah, I don't really understand animes enough. કઈ નથી જોયું. I don't know. मैं કરી શકીશ. Spotify. Uh, okay. Like we cannot really make a like it's a back end first framework, right, guys? So okay, I think I should have mentioned that maybe this is a mostly like you can develop like it has something called a templating language, which lets you can say dynamically render pages, but everything comes via the backend in the end, like Batuj. Uh, so I hope you guys attended some sessions related to Node and JS already, right? So there is a backend, there is a front end, roughly speaking. So શું થશે કે Django is, so you have a web server at this point, and you can assume for this point that something happens, like when you send a request, uh, Django will do some execution and render something for you, and that is only when you send a request. And you often apps have a separate front end which is responsible for making those requests and also for a lot of client side stuff. So if we cannot really make Spotify in a 30-minute session, at least not, and definitely not with Django alone, you will have to use some JavaScript there. So think of a management system, maybe, like if you want to make things simple, or maybe like I would have gone with Tinder, but it's like we'll probably have to use Django's inbuilt user model and એક self relation આવશે કદાચ એમાં, તો બહુ Django expose નહીં થાય એનાથી અડધો કલાકમાં. Blogging app is doable, yes, but એ છે ને Django girls માં એ જ છે, તમે ત્યાં એ જ જોવાના છો influencer. Stack Overflow clone. Okay, that's also okay. That's something I think you can do. Like, okay, maybe let's go for that. Right, fine, let's go for that. And guys, you don't have to use direct messages. If you're not comfortable, sure you can, but jarurat nahi, like you can be. So, okay, I'll tell you what I've done already. There is a virtual environment which I've set up, and I will install Django there. If you use Python, in case you don't know, using virtual environments is much more beneficial because managing dependencies is easier. Like I installed Django 3.2.5 right now, right? I installed that in my virtual environment. હવે જ્યારે હું કદાચ 2 મહિના પછી કોઈ બીજો પ્રોજેક્ટ કરીશ, like if I do something else, it would be maybe on a different version of Django, and it's not necessary that things are backward compatible. Like there may be some breaking changes. So having a separate environment ensures that this runs on Django 3.2.5. My some older project might be running on even Django 2.9. Some future project might run on a future version. Also happens that some versions of other packages are compatible with some particular versions of other packages. So life is easy when you use virtual environments. So yeah, we got Django. We got its necessary dependencies. There's a command called Django admin, which is used for a lot of things related to managing, say, starting an app or starting a project. And yeah, so you can sort of maybe find it helpful. But there is, okay, let's do this first. So I think it's Django admin start. Oh, sorry. By the way, if you don't have Python and stuff, this should be helpful. So follow this, like because some things depend on your OS as well. So this tells you how to install Python, how to set up a code editor. Like I will be using VS Code here. You can use anything, it doesn't really matter, but VS Code is good. Setting up a virtual environment is also taught here. આ બધું કરવા જઈશું તો કદાચ ને આમાં અડધો કલાક પતી જશે, બટ ગેટ ની તમને જ્યારે જોતું એક પોઈન્ટ પર, like you probably have to submit a project on Git, and then okay, this is for Chromebook. This is about Python installation. What is Django installation for JA? So what we did was we set up a virtual environment. Like you can upgrade at a point, but you can make a requirements.txt file. Like, let's not go there, and you can sort of install Django using pip. There should be a command somewhere. May use okay, requirements.txt, they have written Django and they use it to install. And then you have to create a project. જ્યાંથી આપણે હવે આગળ વધીશું. the commands will probably be the same from now. Like I will have to use Python 3 because as a command because I have both Python 2 myself, and we'll try to do some of these stuff. Like, but yeah, let's just do some of it. So Django admin start project my site dot is probably the first step you're going to do, because start project creates a Django project for you. A project has multiple apps inside it, but most of the times you'll be okay with having one app. I'll come to that. My site is like the common name of most of the Django projects. It's like a convention, but you can name it to anything that you want. Dot just means that just install it here. So what this is going to do
Sorry
is,
for interrupting, Yashraj, but like the volume is still a little bit low, the input volume.
is it better now? I think Zoom is auto adjusting volume and reducing it after a point. Let me just change the settings.
Yeah, now it's pretty clear. Now it's perfect. But like earlier, it was a bit low. So sometimes there are phases where the voice is clear, while sometimes it's a little low.
Okay. I will just turn auto volume adjustment off, because sometimes Zoom does this. It reduces the volume.
Yes. Now it's pretty
Cool,
good.
cool. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you do this thing, it creates a basic project structure for you. Gives you a folder called MySite, which was the name of a project. Gives you a file called manage.py, which, as the name suggests, is responsible to help you manage stuff. And if you look inside the folder, you will see some more files. Settings.py is something also we're interested in. You can ignore wizgy.py because that is something that you use when you deploy stuff. And there is also urls.py, which will come to. So yeah, this is what you get. You also have to create a app. So I think you can do it with both Django admin and manage.py. So you can use manage.py here. You can also use Django admin. And you can create an app inside your project. An app is like a reusable component inside your project, which you can also copy paste to some other project if you want. It's just a way to better manage your code. But as a beginner, you can just create one app and be done with it. So we are going to create an app, and the name of the app is generally what the app is supposed to do. So we are making Stack Overflow clone, right? Let's maybe call it a Q&A. So that creates some more files for you. So there is, you'll find another folder called Q&A portal, and that will have some more files. So it has a models.py, it has a test.py, it has a views.py, it has apps.py, admin.py, a lot of them. So maybe let's you can, for the time being, look at models, views, and urls.py. That's what we are interested in, and we'll modify those files. We'll play with it, and I hope that you will sort of get a sense of what Django's architecture is like, what person is behind everything, by what does each of this file represent. So maybe let's go back to settings.py first, and so you can see a secret key. That is something which you have to keep it to yourself. When like basically this can be used to access some security related functionality, and so when you are in a production environment, you should maybe use an environment variable to keep it separate from the code. Debug is a setting in Django. When you have debug equals to true, you get proper error messages, among other things. And if you set debug equal to false, you will not expose security related functionality of your application. Like, this will make more sense when we actually run into an error. So as I said, Django has apps, right? So we created our own app. There are some inbuilt apps which are part of Django itself. You can use this setting to include or exclude them. Like, if you understand stuff really well, you can actually remove some of these apps which your program is not using, which your project is not using, just to save speed. But we are not going there. Middlewares, I think it's a bit too early for us to discuss. Templates, probably you'll never have to change at this point. This is just the part to whiskey.py databases. So you can define your database settings here. Django by default uses SQLite 3, which is like just a file which you'll find in your project directory when we initialize like when we do our first migration. I'll come to that. I'll come to what a migration is. You can change this. Like if you're using PostgreSQL, MySQL, anything else, you can change this. You can actually also configure multiple databases if you want. That's also possible. But this gives you the flexibility of decoupling things. So changing database is like as easy as changing this setting. Your code will be database independent. There are some validators, but we are not going to go there. You can also have validators inside your code. Time zone is used for time related stuff, and we can replace it to our time zone. And static URL is the path for storing static files. Static files is a very tricky subject. Like, storing stuff is, like especially in a production environment, some beginners, even experts at a point find it tricky to manage static files because of the way they have to be handled in the server. So this might annoy you at a point. You might also run into some errors, and we'll sort of try to solve them together. So yeah, this is the general structure of settings.py, which is something we know. And what else? urls.py will work in a way that so your app is going to have some URL. Like okay, let's maybe deploy an app, and then we can discuss this. Models.py is for your database models, where you can sort of define classes, which will be tables in your database. The fields of the classes will be the attributes there, and you can use you can use the object relational mapper on these models to make SQL queries basically, or even no SQL queries, but that requires something else. Maybe let's run this. So the first step probably would be to execute some migrations which are already there because of Django apps to populate your database with the Django specific tables. So a migration is basically like a change that happens in the database settings. You can say it's not exactly like setting the configuration of the database. So suppose I make some change to the models, right? Like if at a point I want to do that, like if you have done some SQL, you will understand that I can alter fields of tables, I can alter tables, I can create new tables, I can delete tables. You don't really have to do that yourself when you're using Django. You can let Django do that. So it is going to create a migrations file that will be like a representation of what changes should be happening on the database because of the changes you've made, and that gets written in the database by the migration engine of Django. So that's a way to make, and you have to preserve those migrations because since like you might be working in groups right now, you will exchange code with your friend, right? So you also have to give him the migrations file. Like this will probably be blank right now. Yes, you don't say anything. So every app has a migrations folder where some changes are stored. Like the definition of the changes is stored in a format which Django understands, and that lets you propagate the changes in the database. So like right now, what will be that Django will also, like Django has to maintain its own data, right? It has some own tables for itself to manage authentication, to manage sessions and stuff. So we want them to be a part of our database so that Django can function properly. So when you do run the command migrate, that is what it should do. Like we don't really have any database setup right now. So see, like there are some default migrations which are inside Django, and they will get executed. And now you will see a SQLite 3 file as well. Like that's that's like your, let me also, I think I have a skillet reader as well in my system right now. So I can show it. Hmm. Okay, let's not do this time. So there should be tables inside the database now which are related to Django, and as we create our own models, those will also create their own tables. So that's something we should do. And since we created this app, we should also tell Django, like we discussed this, right? That these are the installed apps. Hey Django, look at these apps. These are a part of the project. Since we created our own app and Django doesn't really know we created our own app, we should tell it, right? So I'm not sure, like I forget syntax a lot of times, but I think my site apps whatever is the name of this configuration is what we want. Let me just confirm that. Let's see if that works. Otherwise, we'll just look at the documentation and see what the right syntax is. So you have to basically tell Django that, hey Django, this is my app, and please take care of this when you make your migrations. That's kind of it. So let's go to maybe the architecture, right? So as I said, you have models where you define your database tables in simple words. You can also define more stuff, but let's not go there right now. You have your views, which are basically functions which render logic for you. Let's say if you wanted to, let's say a user request for your homepage, right? That show me the homepage. And the homepage you want to, since you are making something like Stack Overflow, I don't really know what the homepage shows. Maybe it's some popular questions which are trending right now. So this view is responsible for fetching those popular questions from the database, taking whatever we want out of it, and passing it on to our HTML CSS. That's what this views has to do. So it's making use of your models, like it's going to use the APIs of your models, and based on that do some logic and pass it on to a template. A template is basically, you can say it's an HTML file, it's an enhanced HTML file where this view will give it the content, and you will have some logic there as well, which will put those questions in the right places. Like I want to show them inside this CSS, and I want to show 5 of them. So all that happens there, and that's what it is. Like we call it the MVT architecture. So models are responsible for your database stuff with the definition of that. Views are responsible for the logic of everything. There can be conditions as well. There can be security related functionalities. Everything which is related to logic happens here, and everything related to rendering that is the responsibility of template. There is one more thing which comes in between. How does a function connect to a URL? So how does Django know that I want to execute this function when I have this URL? So that's something which is done with the help of this file, which is URLs. So we have paths. You can just directly write a path of something here, and that will sort of like what is going to happen is that Django is going to match all the URL patterns one by one from the top to the bottom, and check the first match. So it can be a regex, it can be a direct path as well. The first one which is going to match, there is going to be a view corresponding to that. So that will like bind, like that's what connects your URLs and things. And as like this might be a bit overwhelming, like especially the kind of stuff we do right now, you might think that क्यों कर रहे हैं, but as you make larger apps, these things prove helpful. because essentially everything is like every part has its own responsibility, and a lot of things are decoupled here. So there's a lot of flexibility when you want to make changes. Like so people have found that it makes their life simple, and that's why they do it. Yeah, that's kind of what. So right now, as you can see, there is already some URL mapping. Like that's the admin file. There should, I'm not really sure, but what should happen if I just run the homepage right now? I don't even know what the current versions do that. Current versions do. But so when you run this command called run server, it starts a development server for you, which you can use to just play like on your local environment. It's not something which you can do for production, but yeah, it's smart. Like when you make changes and save something, it auto refreshes for you, except for templates. But yeah, if you change some Django file, like right now, you can see this success message that this shows that the Django app is working, and now you can just start. They also have an inbuilt polling tutorial. Sorry, not a like, it's a part of the Django documentation, and it's also nice. But this one probably makes more sense. Like it's much more detailed, and it uses like it's simpler. Like polls uses a lot of like some functionality which is probably harder to understand for a beginner. So yeah, you can see the HTTP requests here logged here. Like you can configure the logs to sort of store them elsewhere as well. But yeah, so you like if you understand get, post, put, delete, etc., you will be like you'll be able to get a better sense of what's going to like what's happening there under the hood when you do stuff. Like you won't really have to sort of touch this layer at all. Everything is abstracted. So as it's a stack for app, like you probably have a database table called question, and you can say that it inherits the model class of Django, and here you have to determine the fields. So yeah, there's an error right now, but yeah. So what do you think should be the fields? What is this SK application and this K application? Okay, this is answered at this point. Thanks, Bhavya. So what do you think would be the database columns? A very simple question. So suppose if you had to create stack overflow, what would be the columns you want in the questions row if what I speak is making sense to this point? Like, so do we have people who are like who might have studied databases or anything? Even if you have not studied, like you might have done some web. संडे ना रखा है सेशन बड़ा कहीं भी नहीं हुई है. Audible, right?
Yes, yeah, you are.
Okay. So okay, like is it making sense even like what I spoke, or is it just too much or too less?
No, it is. Yeah, it is.
So okay, let me answer that. So you will probably want to store the title of the question, and models let you define fields. Like this models package has lets you define what sort of field you want. Maybe a character. Like this basically corresponds to data types in SQL. So varchar is what char field is, and you can define some attributes inside it. So max length being the most common for the char field. Say 100 characters. You might want to have a description of the question, that can be a character field, but let's go for text field. You might want to store the upvotes, and that's like integer. I don't think that's the stack has question upvotes. I don't know. But yeah, maybe I just wanted to show an like an integer field exists. I just took it out. So you have this. So as there are questions, obviously there are going to answer as well. So what do you say? Description. I don't know. An answer might have a description, which again, let's take a text. And what else? We can actually we might also be interested in looking at who posted the question or who posted the answer. So you got to have a foreign key relationship with the user model. And turns out that Django sort of gives that to you out of the box. So I can just say that let's use the inbuilt models class, and I think that's inside models. So this user class can be used as a foreign key. I think foreign keys are right. Yeah. So every question has one user. It's a one-to-one relationship. The same holds good for answer as well. And it's again a one-to-one relationship. So there has to be a relation between question and answer as well, right? So if anyone wants to take a shot, okay, there has to be a non-delete argument as well. Most generally it's models not cascade. But yeah, there are different types, like that's an SQL thing. So yeah, how do we connect the question and the answer? If anyone wants to take a shot, or maybe we can just move forward.
We also have upvotes in the answer, right? If I mean not.
Yeah, we can take that as well. Yeah. Or maybe let's just keep them for answers. So one question may have many answers, and so therefore it's like a relationship, and you can sort of create a foreign key. Yeah, I guess this much should be enough first. If we did that app configuration thing I was talking about correctly, now creating migrations should so there is this command called make migrations other than migrate, which is so I told Django that, hey Django, I have SAP as well, so please take care of migrations when I ask you. So it saw that there are two new models which are not a part of the database, and it created this file. So if I go to the app, I can see this file, which is some cryptic language for me right now. But see, it tells Django that, hey, create this thing in the database. So it tells the database that, hey, create this thing, and this is the description. So when I migrate, what is going to happen is those changes are going to be a part of the database, and it's seamless. Like you don't really have to worry about all those things. So this has what it has done is that our stuff has gone to the database. So there are two tables now, question and answer, and the kind of relations we talk about have been in place, and that sort of looks like magic. So the next step might be to create a view. So we can import the models here. Like let's just let's say what do we want? I want to create a home page where you see the names of. Let's take all the questions, like we don't really have anything in the database. So maybe I create a home view. So it's like a mandate that the first argument has to be the request object in Django, which lets you access something's pertinent request, and you can sort of run some logic here and give some data. So what do we do? Like say we just want to fetch maybe all the questions right now. Or I would have a lot of them. At a point you might want to use some algorithm to decide. But say I just get all the questions, and this API lets me get everything. And what happens is maybe we'll populate some data. So this will make things clear for us. For the timing, let's just say I did this, but I can also we'll have to create a template as well. But maybe let me just hold here. Let's say I had a file called Yashraj, which does something like I also have to give my questions to this file at a point. But let's say the file exists. Like I know it's a bit confusing at this point to understand, but like since everything is sort of connected to each other, that's how it is. So maybe just box it out on this point. So as I said, we also had to manage the URLs so that you get to sort of like Django knows when there is a URL match that hey, like I have to call the other function. I have to call which particular function. So in the default URLs file, you can actually match some pattern to a particular application. In this case, since there is only one app, I can use something called include. I think it's a part of Django URLs itself, and I can say that hey, you know what? Like just I have another URLs file in my app called Q&A portal, and please just look at that when you get this match, and that will sort of take care of what view is supposed to be handled. And so I have to create another file here. I'll need this here. So there will be another URL package list. So that will. So say if I just like don't have any URL match, so this is basically what comes after your domain name. So if it is localhost, so if I go to localhost/admin, this is what I get. Like this admin URL patterns should match. So this is something which is pre-written by Django. Like it's a part of the Django package itself. So when I'm on the home page, I want to match these URLs. Sorry, like when this path matches, I want to match these URLs, and when I sort of like, so there will be another pattern here, which will point to our view. Basically, that's what's going to happen. So I'll have to import my views here, or I can just a very common pattern is to like just import views, like import Q&A portal views and views. You can also write a name here if you want to reference this URL pattern at a point. yeah, this should be the job. I don't think we have a lot of time to cover templates. Maybe I'll just do a simple render. Let's see. Like, yeah, I hope the flow is clear. I think we should replace this. What do we call? I think it's called HTTP response in Django. So let's see. How do we import it? Okay. So maybe we can just to explain stuff for the time being. I don't want to render the questions right now. Maybe I'll just give a normal response with some text. Hi there. This is my first something like this. And just to make the flow clear, I hope we have done everything. I hope there is no step missing. And at this point, as I said, it might feel that इतनी सारी मगजमारी क्यों कर रहे हैं, and that's a fair question to ask. But yeah, like at a point it gets better. So we actually stopped our server. So when I go to the homepage now, yeah, so I should get this response. So what happened was this pattern got matched, because of which it got passed on to this pattern which got matched, which was corresponding to this views file. And I just wanted to return a simple response that, hey, this is my first tab. And yeah, a long story for such a small thing. So yeah, that's how it is. And I hope this MVT thing, like we haven't really touched models at this point, but I hope this VT thing makes sense. If I want to connect this thing to HTML, which I think a lot of people will want, like if you're using Django, you will not have a separate framework. That's what a lot of people do. You will have to create some templates. So it has a particular folder structure. We'll have to look into what that is. Like, I'm very bad with memory. So I'll just look at, let's just look at where people store the HTML code. So yeah, so there is your app. There is a template folder in that. And there is the name of your app again. Like this peculiar thing is done to avoid conflicts, but so I'll create a folder called templates inside my apps folder. Then I create another folder by the name of my app, within which I can create my file. Say for the time being, I just had I just managed to render a template, and I'll have to tell Django, sorry, I'll have to tell my views that please connect to this template when I want to render this. Probably I'll have to do the name of my app here again. I'm not really sure. Unless I'm very bad with memory. So now when I run my homepage, hey, I just managed to render it. That's what I get. So this passed this thing on to index. This template got rendered. You might say, what's the magic here? The magic will sort of show up when we actually populate questions in the database, and you like we show them here. So let's go to, like, we'll have to jump for the minute to admin.py. So this file lets me configure the admin interface, which is built in by Django. It's provided by Django itself, and I can sort of do some stuff which makes my life easy. So I can register some models if I want to play with them using admin. So you just have to tell that, hey, admin, register my models, and you'll have to import them. Right. You also have to create a super user. At least the first one has to be created from the command line. You can this super user can be used to access the admin interface. So if I go to /admin here, I can log in the credentials. I can access the site administration. The groups and user classes are pre-built. We reference users as well at a point. And my super user, as you can see, is here. I say I want to populate some questions in my database. Which one? In Windows, like Windows particularly sucks when it comes to these things. So description, and let's say I posted it. Maybe one more. You can say anything. How to install Windows 15 by installing Windows twice. Let's type it. So we got these two question objects in the database right now, which we can render in my template. So if you noticed, what I did was I got the questions from the database. I passed it on to this. We did nothing with this. So I can actually use some templating magic to show stuff dynamically in HTML. So this strange syntax which I'm going to see right now is a part of Django templating language. If you have used Flask before or something else for which you might have heard of Jinja, this is very similar. So I can actually use a form for question and questions. I think the way to end the form is using end for. I can say that, hey, why don't you render a question title in H2? I'm not sure about double braces or single braces. It's probably double braces. And I can Django do this one. And when I go back to the page now, you can see that like my things got populated from the database, and I see that in an H2. Similarly, if I wanted to also write question description, I could have done that. Let's just and you can put anything you want. I hope you get the point. And like it's ugly right now because we don't really have the time to do a lot of beautification, but whatever you learned in your previous sessions applies. You can like put some fancy CSS, you can use some JavaScript as well, you can make it look beautiful. So that's how it works. Like that's how things are dynamic. DTL is also fairly sophisticated. It lets you do a lot of stuff, and it's something to like read at a point. So this is when like you actually use like this, like if you might, I'm not sure how your node session was taken, but you might have just created APIs, I guess, at a point. You might not have so you might have like there might be some discussion on what REST is or what APIs are. You might have created something. So you can do that in Django as well. So instead of rendering this HTML file, you can actually uh, serialize this response. Like you can convert whatever data you have to JSON or any other format, but JSON is the most common one. And you can return that response as well, which can be later called by a front end. That's also possible, and that's what many apps do, because this sort of couples things. If you look at it, you cannot really use a front end framework directly. If you also use, like, if you render things from the server side, like this actually might be a bottleneck at a point. So for that, there is something known as, like, you can directly do it in Django as well, but Django REST framework is something which makes your life very easy when you do that. So it has, this thing sits over Django and it lets you create APIs very easily. Like it's a battle tested framework, production ready. Like you can do a lot of stuff with this thing. There's a lot which comes out of the box. In case you might be doing some functionality like chats, or you want to use WebSockets, you might want to check out Django channels at a point. This is also helpful. Like I haven't really used it, but like I sort of know a bit about the use cases, and this will help you. There are APIs for using GraphQL as well with Django. Like if you want to use GraphQL, but if you know enough about GraphQL, you probably find the library yourself. There are a lot of libraries for like which might be helpful to you. One of them is like Django Bootstrap, I guess, which integrates Bootstrap with Django. Like you can use Bootstrap classes very easily with Django. For example, let's go to something which you will probably come if you like you might want, you will have to learn if you are using Django in this website, making challenges, how to work with fonts in Django. You don't really have to use HTML, CSS, JavaScript directly. You can render it from the backend as well. So there is something called a form class which lets you define the data about your form. Like you can actually connect it to your models as well. It makes a lot of things very easy. Like the settings and the validations of your models directly come to your forms without you having to write those things again. That's kind of very helpful. And you can actually create an instance of this forms class, pass it to your views, and when you render it, Django will ensure that proper HTML is created on its own. When you use Django Bootstrap with it, Django Bootstrap will ensure that the Bootstrap classes are properly applied on its own. That's quite powerful. There are like this is something you want to know because you probably use it as a beginner. Admin interface is also very flexible. Like you can modify a lot of stuff there. You can put filters, you can merge classes, etc. etc. There's a lot to learn there as well. You might also want to see about sessions and keys and stuff at a point. Templates has a concept called inheritance. That is something you might want to check. How do you like? So every page of yours is going to have a navbar, right? So why do you want to write the code of navbar again? You can include some other template, extend some other template, and do things like that to make your life very easy. Like, these things are something which are worth spending some time through. And if you do the Django Girls tutorial mentioned previously, you will be able to sort of understand. So yeah, I think that's fairly it from my side. My agenda is mostly covered. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'll just hang around for a while. If you want to ask anything specifically to your project, like maybe I can help you suggest some library or some concept which you're not aware of. And yeah, I think that's about it. We didn't really do a lot in terms of code. Like you might say, yeah, recap and that's a fair question. But yeah, like as there is a lot to technically understand, you probably need some time before you write a lot of code. And actually, you don't need to write a lot of code when you're working with Django, because a lot of stuff comes with it as discussed. So yeah, I guess that's about it from my side. It's like 70 minutes already. Yeah. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for being here.
Feel free to guys unmute yourself if you have any questions, or the chat is there itself. And thank you, Yashraj, for such a wonderful session. I mean, this approach where sort of we do a mini project and learn was actually very creative, like to understand the concepts. So guys, please feel free to ask questions if there are any, and also like Yashraj said, that if you have any project specific questions, or say the current problem statements you're working on, and maybe you you have decided to use Django as your backend framework, you could maybe ask. So I think that as sort of they'll work on the backend, they might have at that time specific questions. So that would be it. So thank you, Yashraj. Thanks a lot for such a wonderful and amazing session. So that's it from our side, guys. Thank you for joining. We will keep you updated through emails regarding the deadlines, and we'll also share the backend resources as I mentioned at the beginning of the session. And yeah, so that's about it.
There's a question which is actually sent privately to me, which is the best site for and YouTube channel for backend. Backend in general, like you cannot really find everything at one place. For Django, I think Sendex has good videos. SCNTDEX. If you want to like if you're someone who learns by videos, there's a very popular channel which posts Python videos. Okay, I forgot the name, but okay. Sendex should be enough. I'll find the other one and tell you. Like they also have very amazing videos. Apart from that, Django Girls is a good tutorial. There is a tutorial at Mozilla Developer Network System, Development Networks, Developer Network System. So that is also good, but that's a bit more involved. CS50 has some courses which you might want to check. Yeah, this should be more than enough. I don't really want.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the
so many tutorials. Yep, I will ask in WhatsApp for that. Yeah, sure. That's okay. Cool, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Atman, for taking the introduction and stuff up. And yeah, thanks a lot, team, for having me. Good to be back.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
It was nice to have you, Yashraj bhai.
Likewise. Yeah. Bye bye.